Hi everyone, this is Hap Stokes. I'm a volunteer at the Boy Scouts of America, and I've developed a course called Extreme Volunteer Recruiting. I've developed this over 10 years ago, and I've been training it at the University of Scouting in Minnesota for all that time. Extreme Volunteer Recruiting is all about a series of escalations that start with everyday type recruiting techniques. And this series of escalations it's very important that you go through the escalations, because when you do, you're able to go through and use different techniques. And these, of course, are all when the everyday type techniques are falling short. So let me be clear. If you've got an organization where you have a need and you can talk about it at one of your meetings and say, will somebody volunteer, and somebody raises their hand, then that's great. That's everyday kind of recruiting techniques. You can describe things verbally, things can be done unofficially, things can be done off the cuff. That's all the kind of situation you'd find in everyday recruiting. Remember, I believe that everybody really has their best intentions in mind. They're basically good people trying to provide the best situation for their organization or for their child. So remember that the motivations here are only that we have to be clear what it is that we want them to do. Now, if you're in a situation where you've gone through this and you've asked for help and you're not getting a lot of help in the everyday recruiting type realm, you may need to escalate. And this will be the first of the series of escalations. Basically what this says is we need to focus back on our organization. So our first escalation I'm calling foundations. And what we're doing here by doing this escalation in this way is we are basically changing the rules. So the rules you use here in everyday recruiting techniques may have to change if you have to escalate. And that's okay. There's no problem with that, especially in the situations where you've already gone through and tried a number of things here. First thing that I'd like to propose at this first escalation is that we get some help. Somebody whose job it is to not be the Cubmaster or the Scoutmaster focusing on the boys, and not be the committee chair who is focusing on the program, but instead somebody who focuses only on volunteers. The volunteer coordinator. Have somebody whose job it is to make sure that everybody knows what they're supposed to do, they're trained for what they're supposed to do, and they are thanked once they have done it. This person is all about focusing on the volunteer. Second of these inwardly focused steps is to make sure that our organization has some defined policies. Which kind of policies? Well, mostly these are policies whose job it is to protect the volunteers. So, those policies are intended to explain to our potential volunteers that we will not do something that will cause problems for them. We will not go back to them over and over because they have proven that they are a sucker and that they are willing to volunteer, and we're going to continue to suck the life out of them. We want, actually on the opposite, to say, I want to protect my volunteers. First of all, I want to say one position per family. That is to say, I want you to volunteer for one thing and do that one thing very well, because we need that one thing to be pulled off, and I need to trust that that one thing's going to happen. That also says, hey, volunteers, this is as much as you are expected. When you join our organization, we are going to expect 100% of you to participate. But that participation is limited to just one position. So it is okay to say you have to pay your dues, you have to pay your membership, and You have to have 100% participation with at least just one event, one item, one position. The last thing that we have under policies is job descriptions. So it's really important that we know what it is that we're supposed to do. As a matter of fact, these job descriptions do a couple things. They say what you're supposed to do, and they say, here is the training that's available for this. Now, actually, I'd like to point out, within the Boy Scouts of America program, there is a program that's focused on all of these phase number 1 escalation type items, and that's called scoutparents.org. So you can go to that site, you'll find job descriptions, you'll find training. You'll find training for somebody that they call the Scout Parent Coordinator. I call it the Volunteer Coordinator, but it's the same kind of an idea. The good thing is that the Boy Scouts of America has understood that this is an issue, and they've gone ahead and tried to address it. Now here's a second item. Once you've gone and done the everyday recruiting techniques, and you have problems, and then you've gone and done all this work to establish policies and have somebody whose job it is, and you're still having problem, you're ready for the next escalation. Next escalation is number 2, what I call communication. Now, communication is where this whole technique becomes a little extreme, depending on how you want to do it. Communication says, I want to provide a good big picture view of what my Boy Scout troop needs for the entire year. And I want to make that visible. As a matter of fact, I want to bring it to every event. I want it to be clearly visible. Clearly visible. And as a matter of the regular operation of my organization, we will continue to give you the big picture of what our needs are for these volunteer positions and to make it clearly visible all the time what our current status is. One of the ways that I like to do to make it clearly visible is to create something called a volunteer board. This is a physical board that contains the big picture of what your volunteering needs are. So here's an example where we have some cards, and each of these cards is a job that we need, and there's the name of the job on the front and the scope of what the effort is on the front as well. On the back is the job description. So I can go through, and at any time you'll see that there are multiple cards in any slot. So I can always take a card, even multiple cards, while I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want to volunteer for. The job description in the back tells me what it is that this is about. I can take this card even before I have volunteered to do a particular job. I can take this card, bring it home, discuss it with my spouse, and if I decide to take it, then I can take that card and put it on the fridge with a magnet, and that's the job that I volunteered for. To volunteer for something, you'll notice each card has a red stop sign on it that says, we need you to volunteer. If you take your Post-it note, and if, like we said, everybody within our organization will only have one position, and we want everybody to have a position, you could pre-fill out any of these Post-it notes. These are just green Post-it notes. I like to do that for our metaphor here. And take it and put it on top of one of these job items. Okay? And that job item now is filled. It's covering up the red stop sign, and it shows that that position is filled. Now, the thing that's so cool about this is that once you have a mechanism like this volunteer board, you can have your volunteers always looking at this, trying to decide what they want to do. Let's say that one of these people here was not at the last meeting, and they really want this job over here. So this person may decide to say, I will approach this person directly and say, I noticed that you volunteered for that job. Would you mind if I took that job? That's really what I like to do. Would it be okay for you to fill another job? Yes, no problem. I just filled that one in, but I was also looking at this one. So I will allow that, and this is actually asking for people to talk to each other, to swap jobs, to make the jobs to fit what you need. Now, in my volunteer board, in my particular pack, I've got 4 of these, and they fit onto a piece of foam core board like this, and we just bring this to every single one of the meetings, and you can always tell how many open positions we have based on this kind of information. Now, we've gone through the escalation from everyday techniques to foundations, and then again to this crazy idea of going to this extreme, or any extreme, to make the big picture clearly visible. And then you still are having problems. Let me ask you, at the beginning, we talked about the motivations that anybody would have in order to go through here. Their motivations are likely associated to their son. So I'm going to ask you for number 3, not to be an escalation, but to actually be something that's a little bit lower. Number 3 asks you to refocus on what is important. What is important here is the boys. All right, let's not forget we are all about the boys. All right, so refocusing says, let's not worry so much if we are short of volunteers. As a matter of fact, we have gone through each step and made it clear what we need to have a big program. What we have actually done is we have earned the right to actually cut program. Down here we're refocusing on the boys. The acronym is keep it simple, make it fun. So most of the kids that I know, especially at the Cub Scout level, are far less interested in any of the politics or the finance or anything. They're more interested in the goofy games and the goofy songs and the fun we can have with our friends. It is possible to maintain an organization within the Boy Scouts of America with a very simple program that doesn't have expensive items like Pinewood Derby or difficult items that require a lot of volunteering. So this entire idea is what we call extreme volunteer recruiting. You are earning the right to change the rules when everyday techniques don't work. If you have any questions or you want further information, you can look for my name under the University of Scouting, Hap Stokes, or you can contact me by my email, and I also recommend going and make a visit to scoutparents.org. Thank you very much.